Chapter 288, Skills Cloning Ability, 1. After Jin Zuyin said this, he let out a long sigh and carried his friend to the house. Since the second floor was his and his girlfriend's bedroom, he didn't let his friend go there and placed him on the couch instead. Sitting on the couch, Fuguari's gaze never left Jin Zuyin. Wherever he went, his eyes would follow. If one didn't know, they might have thought that he was in love with him and couldn't bear to let him out of his sight. Noticing the gaze, Jin Zuyin took a seat across from him. As they stared at each other, black mist suddenly seeped out from Fuguari's body. Seeing this, Jin Zuyin stood up and quickly went to check on him. Feeling a strong energy fluctuation coming from his friend's body, he reached out to check the black mist, but before he could touch it, the black mist evaporated and disappeared. While Fuguari didn't show any responses, his forehead was covered by a layer of cold sweat. Even the vines tying him up let out white smoke as if they were burned by something. The vines quickly loosened and retreated outside the house. Thinking that he would attack him again, Jin Zuyin prepared himself to fight. Unexpectedly, instead of attacking him, Fuguari suddenly fell to the ground and curled up. His body was soon drenched in sweat and his muscles tensed up. As more and more black mist seeped out from his body, the black, long nails on his fingers slowly returned to normal. Even his black eyes also showed signs of returning to normal. Standing not far from him, Jin Zuyin noticed these changes. He didn't know what would happen to his friend and could only carry him out to the pond. As he put him down, he quickly fed him more pond water. At first he thought that Fuguari wouldn't be able to drink, but the moment the water touched his lips, he gulped it down. Seeing that he still wanted more, Jin Zuyin continued feeding him water. Meanwhile, the black mist seeping out from Fuguari's body had been turned into energy and absorbed by the space. While the space didn't expand, the energy in the space became thicker and purer. Sleeping on her bed, Zhao Lijai frowned as she felt her head was in so much pain and her body was burning. At this moment, the crystal core in her body was spinning at a fast speed as it absorbed the energy in the space. 2 hours later, the crystal core finally stopped absorbing the energy as the zombie virus inside Fuguari's body had been sucked out by the space and turned into energy. After a moment, both Zhao Lijai and Fuguari opened their eyes at the same time. When Jin Zuyin saw his friend's eyes, he was stunned. His eyes had returned to normal. While his pupils still retained the silver color, they were no longer all black. He checked his body and found that his friend no longer had rigor mortis and his nails had returned to normal. He looked at him and asked, "Fuguari, can you recognize me?" Looking at him, Fuguari showed confusion and parted his lips. He seemed to be saying something, but no words came out. Holding onto his throat, he shook his head. "My name is Jin Zuyin. We grew up together in the orphanage. We have been best friends for years before you were kidnapped," he said. Hearing this, Fuguari shook his head again. Seeing this, Jin Zuyin knew that the facility must have done something to alter his memories and asked, "Do you know your name?" Fuguari shook his head after thinking for a long time. This time, Jin Zuyin was sure that his friend had lost his memories. He didn't know if it was due to the experiments done by the facility or because of the zombie virus. No matter what the reason was, he would note this debt down and make them pay for it one day. At the same time, in the master bedroom, Zhao Lijai had already walked to the full-body mirror. When she looked at her reflection, she was startled to see her dark color pupils had now turned blue. Touching the reflection of her eyes in the mirror, she muttered softly, "The second evolution shouldn't happen this fast. The second reign is not here yet. How can my ability already evolve?" Recalling that she not only brought her boyfriend into her space but also pulled the mutant in, she quickly left the bedroom. When she came downstairs, she saw her boyfriend talking to a man. "Brother Yan," she called while staring at the man. Hearing his girlfriend's voice, Jin Zuyin turned and quickly walked over. He checked her from head to toe while asking, "Aitg, how are you feeling? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Before she could answer him, he had already used his energy to probe her body. Zhao Lijai trusted him, so he could check her internal body without any resistance. After a while, he finally let out a sigh of relief and said, "Aitg, it's good that your body has no problem. You suddenly fainted and scared me." While he was checking on her, Zhao Lijai was looking at Fuguari. She looked at his face and found it very familiar. Not long after, her eyes widened and she asked, "Brother Yan, why did you free this mutant?" As soon as she said this, she pushed her boyfriend to the side and waved her hand. Several ice needles flew at Fuguari at a fast speed, aiming to kill him in one move. Seeing the incoming attack, Fuguari's eyes turned cold, and he raised his hand. Clang, clang, clang. Zhao Lijai's eyes widened in shock when she saw him using an ice shield to block her attack, and she said, "You are an ice-type ability user." Chapter 289, Skills Cloning Ability 2. Since her attack failed, Zhao Lijai opened her palms and 2 water blades appeared above them. Before she could attack Fu Guari again, Jin Zuyan hugged her from behind and said, "Aitg, he is not an enemy, he is my friend." The moment she heard this, Zhao Lijai was stunned. She looked at her boyfriend and asked, "Brother Yan, what did you say? You said he was a mutant. How could he be your friend? What's more, his target was you. He came to kill you." "Aitg, calm down and listen to my explanation. I will tell you everything," Jin Zuyan said. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai glared at Fu Guari for a while before she absorbed her energy back. The next moment, the water blades turned into a splash of water. "Okay, you can tell me now," she said. Jin Zuyan didn't let her go but carried her to the couch. As they sat down, Fu Guari stood there, lost in thought. Suddenly, he opened his palm and a water blade floated above it. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai was shocked and exclaimed, "Isn't he an ice-type ability user? How could he use my skill?" After saying this, she recalled their battle before and finally understood why, even after being hit directly by Jin Zuyan's attacks, he was not injured at all. At first, she thought that it might be because he was a mutant, so he was stronger than a zombie. Turns out, it was due to his ability. In her previous life, she had heard of lots of strange abilities, so it's not impossible for someone to have an ability to copy other people's abilities. Since she could think about this possibility, Jin Zuyan would also be able to reach this conclusion. Looking at his friend, he asked, "Fu Guari, is your ability cloning?" Hearing this, Fu Guari turned to look at them and shook his head. He didn't know what the ability that he was talking about. Although his memories were foggy, he knew that from a long time ago, whenever he saw someone using their skills, he would be able to use those skills too. "Then, can you use other people's skills after you see them?" Jin Zuyan asked again. This time, Fu Guari nodded. After thinking for a moment, Jin Zuyan opened his palm, and a wisp of black flame floated above it. Seeing this, Fu Guari watched the flame for a long time and opened his palm. The 3 of them stared at his palm, but after a long time, instead of black flame, it was red flame that floated above it. When he saw this, Jin Zuyan finally said, "It seems that your ability is indeed skill cloning, but it seems you can only use the basic grade of the ability skills." "Brother Yan, do you mean that this person can copy other people's skills, but cannot copy their abilities' grade?" Zhao Lijai asked. "I'm not sure either, we have to test it out more. But for now, we can be sure that he can copy our skills, but the grade of our ability cannot be copied. So even if he uses the same skill as us, the attack power is different," Jin Zuyan replied. After he said this, both Zhao Lijai and Fu Guari nodded. Seeing that he no longer showed any enmity toward them, Zhao Lijai finally said, "Brother Yan, can you tell me what happened now?" "Aitg, before I answer you, I have to ask you something first," Jin Zuyan said. "Brother Yan, you asked," she nodded. After a moment of hesitation, Jin Zuyan finally asked, "Aitg, your space, can it absorb the zombie virus?" When she heard this, Zhao Lijai was taken aback and asked him back, "Brother Yan, why did you ask this?" "While you were unconscious, black mist came out of Fu Guari's body and he slowly reverted back into a human. I checked his body and he no longer has any zombie virus in him," Jin Zuyan explained. The moment Zhao Lijai heard this, she recalled that the zombified Mo Bingxiu also leaked black mist from her body and turned into energy absorbed by her space. But at that time, she disappeared as she turned into energy and left nothing behind. Now that she compared the situations between Mo Bingxiu and Fu Guari, she realized that while both of their bodies were contaminated by the zombie virus, Mo Bingxiu was fully zombified while Fu Guari was only half zombie and still retained human traits. Since that was the case, then it wasn't impossible for him to stay alive after the zombie virus inside his body was absorbed by her space. After reaching this conclusion, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "Brother Yan, to tell you the truth, this space needs energy to sustain it. Every day, it will absorb some crystal cores. It also turns anything that contains zombie virus into energy and absorbs it." Thinking about the black blood and rotten flesh on their clothes that suddenly disappeared the moment they entered the space, Jin Zuyan asked, "Including the zombies' blood and flesh?" Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "I have tried putting zombies into my space and turning them into energy, but it failed." "If you can't put the zombies into your space, Then how could you pull that female zombie and Fu Guari into it? Jin Zuyan asked with doubt. About this, I don't understand the reason either. Zhao Lijai shook her head. Jin Zuyan frowned and said, there must be some requirement that allows you to pull zombies into your space. Zhao Lijai thought for a while before she said, Brother Yan, do you think I can only pull zombies that have regained their memories into my space? During our battle against him, I noticed his eyes regained some consciousness when he saw you. Perhaps at that moment, he regained some of his human memories, she added. Then what about that female zombie? Jin Zuyan asked. Chapter 290, Black Flame Pillar. Scratching her head, Zhao Lijai replied, that person was actually one of my classmates. Her name is Mo Bingxiu, and she was Pei Yijin's team member before. I don't know what happened to her, but she turned into a zombie the next time I met her. But before she became a zombie, she had a healing ability. During our battle, I noticed she was targeting me and seemed to retain her memories. She even had consciousness, she added. After hearing his girlfriend's explanation, Jin Zuyan suddenly asked, Aitg, what's her name again? Mo Bingxiu. Seeing her boyfriend frown, Zhao Lijai asked, Brother Yan, do you know her? She might be Mo Junji's cousin. Old Zhang told me about him looking for his cousin and posting a missing person notice at Zun Qi's base. Old Zhang said the person he was looking for was named Mo Bingxiu, Jin Zuyan said with a sigh. Zhao Lijai was shocked when she heard this. After a moment of silence, she asked, Brother Yan, should we tell Mo Junji about this? It's not good for him to keep searching when she is already gone. We will tell him the truth when we return to Zun Qi's base. If he wants to leave, we won't force him to stay, Jin Zuyan said. Will he hate us for killing his cousin? Zhao Lijai asked. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan smiled and replied, Don't worry, what we killed was a zombie, not a human. Even if he learns we were the ones who killed her, he has no reason to hate us. After all, we only did it because she had turned and was trying to kill us. Zhao Lijai nodded, then asked again, Then what about your friend? Jin Zuyan looked at his friend and noticed that he was staring at them with interest. Although he no longer had the zombie virus inside him, the facility had put a tracker on him. If they let him out, the facility might track his location and endanger his girlfriend and team. Before he was strong enough, he wouldn't confront the facility head-on. After weighing the pros and cons, he finally said, Aitg, if possible, it's better for him to stay in your space. If you are worried, you can put restrictions on him like you did with the mutant animals. When she heard this, Zhao Lijai looked at her boyfriend and said, Brother Yan, I thought you had a good relationship with him. We are best friends and grew up together, Jin Zuyan replied. Then how could you treat him like the mutant animals? She asked. It's just an example, he said helplessly. Zhao Lijai gave him another glance before she said, I won't restrict him. As long as he is in my space, I can continue to monitor his movement and use my consciousness to control him if he suddenly goes crazy. All right then, I will listen to you, Jin Zuyan smiled. After their discussion, Zhao Lijai went to the kitchen and made some food. She cooked a pot of steamed rice, roasted a chicken, brewed hot and sour fish soup, and fried several eggs. When the food was served, she asked, Brother Yan, do you think your friend can eat human food? Jin Zuyan glanced at Fu Guari and said, he should be able to. Just as he said this, Fu Guari walked over and sat beside him. He looked at him with an urging gaze. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan scooped a bowl of steamed rice for him. The moment he placed the bowl in front of him, Fu Guari used his hand to shove the rice into his mouth. Hey, don't use your hands, use chopsticks, Zhao Lijai said. Aitg, he might not know how to use utensils, Jin Zuyan said sadly. From the way he ate, he must have been raised like an animal in the facility, he thought inwardly. Fu Guari didn't pick at the dishes and only ate the white rice. When he finished, he slammed the table, asking for more. This time, Zhao Lijai used a plate instead. She scooped more rice onto it and added some dishes for him too. When Fu Guari tasted the food, his eyes lit up and his eating speed increased. Sitting beside him, Jin Zuyan picked more dishes for him as they ate. When they finished, he gave Fu Guari a bath and helped him change into clean clothes. The moment Zhao Lijai saw him after he took a bath, she asked, Brother Yan, are you sure he is not your brother? The two of you look so similar. Jin Zuyan smiled at her words but said nothing. He didn't want to tell her about the facility yet. He would wait until he was stronger before he told her everything. After she left more food and water for Fu Guari, Zhao Lijai held her boyfriend's hand and left the space. The moment they reappeared, they were faced with countless zombies surrounding them. The sound of zombies roaring was so loud that Zhao Lijai felt as if her eardrums had been pierced. When the zombies caught their scent, they pounced instantly. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan pulled his girlfriend into his embrace. Boom! Before the zombies' claws and teeth could touch them, a burst of black flame erupted from his body, creating a fire barrier around them. Raw! Being in the center of the zombie horde, he didn't hold back and released 30% of his energy. As the black flame fed on his power, the temperature in the area surged. Any zombie that came into contact with the flame was instantly reduced to ashes. Before long, the fire barrier transformed into a towering pillar of black flame, shooting up toward the sky. Standing at its center, Jin Zuyan expanded the barrier outward. As seconds passed, the flame pillar grew to 30 meters in diameter and 10 meters in height. Standing atop the metal wall, the Phantom team members witnessed the scene together with the Eagle team and the soldiers sent by Zan Qi. Chapter 291, Return to the Base. Pointing at the black flame pillar, Zyro Kai exclaimed excitedly, "That's Captain and sister-in-law, they are still alive." Qin Luzi checked his map and nodded. "They are back," he said. "What about the high-level zombie?" Zhang Yuan asked. "I don't see it on my map. Captain and sister-in-law must have killed it," Qin Luzi replied affirmatively. Hearing this, Zhang Yuan let out a sigh of relief and said, "That's good." At the same time, Jin Zuyan lowered his head and asked, "Aitg, are you all right?" Zhao Lijai was sweating from the high temperature. Fortunately, she was able to use her water ability to cover her skin with a thin layer of ice, reducing the heat. She nodded and replied, "Brother Yan, I'm fine." Seeing that his girlfriend still looked uncomfortable, Jin Zuyan carried her and rushed toward the metal wall. With the fire barrier surrounding them, no zombies could get close. When they were 20 meters away from the wall, Jin Zuyan extinguished the fire barrier and leaped to the top of the wall. The moment he landed, the Phantom team members rushed over. "Captain, sister-in-law, are you all right?" Zyro Kai asked. Jin Zuyan placed his girlfriend down and said, "We are fine." After confirming they were safe, the team returned to killing zombies. Since Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai had rested and eaten in her space, they joined the fight again. It wasn't until the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning that they finally killed the last zombie. The moment the soldiers saw this, they cheered. Although they had only fought for 2 days and 1 night, they already felt mentally and physically exhausted. When they saw the Phantom and Eagle team members still able to clean up zombie corpses and collect crystal cores, they finally realized just how big the gap between them really was. After the battlefield was cleaned up, Wenmo looked at the huge metal wall and asked, "Captain, what should we do with this wall?" Normally, he would turn the metal into bullets, but the amount used this time was excessive. If he turned it all into bullets, it would take up too much space in their space-type user's storage. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan thought for a moment and said, "Just turn it into a lump of metal for now. We might need it later." As a team member who followed the captain's rule to recycle everything, Wen Kai nodded and said, "Understood." While everyone was packing up their equipment, he sat down to absorb some crystal cores. By the time the team finished packing up, he had already recovered his energy. Under everyone's gaze, he turned the metal wall into large cubes. As the metal stacked neatly on the road, Zhao Lijai waved her hands and stored them in her space. She also collected all the metal bullets used in battle. The moment the bullets and metal cubes appeared on the grassland inside her space, they began emitting black mist and turned into energy, which was absorbed by the space. Unlike before this time, when the zombie virus energy formed a wisp, part of it was absorbed by Fuguari. As he absorbed the energy, the mutated part of his body slowly returned to normal. Though the change was minimal, it made him look more human. Afterward, he went to the pond and drank several ladles of water. With his body being half human and half zombie, he couldn't eat human food. To survive, he had to absorb crystal cores. Now that he couldn't get any, he relied on the pond water, which held similar energy. While he was wandering around the space, Zhao Lijai was watching through her consciousness. After a while, she opened her eyes and said in a low voice, "Brother Yan, he seems to be doing fine in there." "That's good," Jin Zuyan said as he drove. With the addition of the Eagle team and the soldiers sent by Zan Qi, they no longer had to worry about the wandering zombies along the road. Other than him and his girlfriend, none of the Phantom team members were willing to drive as they were too exhausted. so the cars were driven by the Eagle team while the Phantom team slept. By the time they arrived at Sun Chi's base, the sky had already changed color. When the guards at the gate saw the convoy, one of them quickly picked up his walkie-talkie and reported, "Vice Captain, the Eagle team has returned with our soldiers. Open the gate and let them in after inspection." Understood. Following the order, the soldier called out, "Open the gate and remove the barricade." Before long, several cars pulled up outside the base. As the Eagle team and soldiers stepped out, everyone waited with anticipation. Moments later, the Phantom team exited the vehicles one by one. When the soldiers saw them, they all saluted and said in unison, "Welcome back, comrades." The Phantom team, the Eagle team, and Sun Chi's soldiers returned the salute. Though they no longer served in the military, they still felt proud to be contributing to humanity's survival. "Comrades, we need to inspect you for any infection. Please follow us to the tent," one of the soldiers said. Knowing this was standard procedure, no one objected. Inside the tent, the soldiers asked them to undress and check their bodies thoroughly. When it was Zhao Lijai's turn, Jin Zuyan said, "No need to check my girlfriend. We will wait 2 hours before entering the base." Since there were no female soldiers or staff available, the inspecting soldier nodded with understanding. Okay. Because he intended to wait with his girlfriend, Jin Zuyan also skipped the inspection. The two were taken to a smaller tent to rest. Before leaving, the soldier said, "Comrades, there is some water and dry food here. If you are hungry or thirsty, please help yourselves." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai asked, "Comrade, leaving water and food here like this, aren't you worried someone might steal it?" Chapter 292, Old Bachelors. When the soldier heard Zhao Lijai's question, he smiled and replied, "This tent is for soldiers to rest during breaks. Without our permission, no one is allowed in, so no, we are not worried." Zhao Lijai nodded and said with understanding, "I see. Captain Jin, I have to go check on incoming survivors, so I will leave you two here." "Go on, we will take a nap," Jin Zuyan said. After the soldier left, Zhao Lijai zipped up the tent and asked her boyfriend in a low voice, "Brother Yan, I need to use the bathroom. Want to come with me?" Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "I will go wherever you go." Smiling, she held his hand, and the two entered her space. As soon as they appeared, she rushed into the master bedroom. After using the bathroom, she took a quick shower to wash off the sweat and grime. Not showering for a day had left her uncomfortable. While her body didn't have a bad odor, the stench of rotting flesh and blood still clung to her. At this moment, she couldn't help but lament how fast her hair was growing. It had only been 23 days since she cut it short, but it had already grown to her waist, with the ends slightly curled. She considered cutting it again, but her boyfriend liked to play with her hair when they cuddled. Thinking he preferred it long, she decided not to cut it. In a world without entertainment, if cutting her hair meant he would lose one of his small joys, then she was willing to sacrifice her convenience for his happiness. After brainwashing herself, she finished her shower and changed her clothes. Thankfully, they had collected a lot of clothes in the factory district. She wore a similar outfit so no one would notice the change. When she finished drying her hair and stepped out of the master bedroom, she saw her boyfriend walking out from the other bedroom. Noticing his wet hair, she said, "Brother Yan, you should dry your hair properly." Jin Zuyan smiled and circulated his energy. In less than 5 seconds, his hair was dry. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai said enviously, "Brother Yan, your ability is so convenient." Walking over, Jin Zuyan ran his fingers through her hair and said, "Aitg, if you want, I can dry your hair too." Touching her 80% dry hair, she replied, "It's almost dry now, let's do it next time." Okay, Jin Zuyan agreed happily. Before leaving the space, she grabbed some food and pond water. When they reappeared outside, they heard a voice from outside the tent. "Captain, it seems Captain Jin and his girlfriend are sleeping inside." "They didn't undergo inspection?" Sun Chi asked. The soldier scratched his head and replied with embarrassment, "Captain, Comrade Zhao Lijai is Captain Jin's girlfriend. We don't have any female staff. Who would dare inspect her? Realizing the issue, Sun Chi nodded and said, "It really is inconvenient without the female staff." Turning to the base's administrative staff, he added, "Post a recruitment notice to hire female personnel." Understood. After giving a few more instructions, Sun Chi and his team returned to the office. Since Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai had to wait 2 hours, there was no need to linger. He could visit them tomorrow. 2 hours later, Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan showed no signs of mutation and were finally allowed to enter the base. Since it was almost time for dinner, the two of them drove directly to their house. When they arrived at their residence, they noticed that the house next to them had been occupied. They only glanced at the house for a moment before entering. As soon as they walked into the living room, they heard Sun Qi and Wei Wang's voices. Raising his eyebrows, Jin Zuyan went to the dining room and saw them eating fruit while chatting. Seeing this, he asked, "Wei Wang, Sun Qi, what are you two doing in my place?" Hearing his words, they turned and greeted him. "Jin Zuyan, you are finally back." Coming out of the kitchen, Yu Feian said, "Captain, sister-in-law, dinner is almost ready. The two of you should take a shower first." Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "Okay." Before her boyfriend could throw any jabbing words at the guests, she quickly pulled him to the second floor while saying, "Brother Yan, as the host, we should be more polite to the guests. They must have important things to discuss with us. That's why they stayed until so late." Jin Zuyan snorted and said, "Those two old foxes, they only came to leech off our dinner." Zhao Lijai chuckled at his words and replied, "We have lots of supplies, letting them eat some won't hurt." Seeing that his girlfriend was happy, Jin Zuyan said, "Since you said so, I will listen to you." He wasn't unwilling to let Sun Qi and Wei Wang eat their supplies. He was unhappy because with the two of them here, it would take a long time to finish discussing important matters. His Aitg was tired, and she would go to sleep early. He wanted to accompany her sleeping, not spend time talking with two old bachelors. Not knowing that her boyfriend was sulking for another reason, Zhao Lijai changed into comfortable home clothes. When she came out of the walk-in closet, she saw her boyfriend rummaging through his backpack, wearing only his pants. Stunned by the sudden beautiful scenery, she stood there unmoving for a long time, watching his beautiful back muscles and strong but slim waist. While she was lost in her yellow thoughts, Jin Zuyan found the small box. Turning around, he saw his girlfriend grinning foolishly while staring at his body. The corner of his lips lifted as he said, "Aitg, do you like what you see?" "I like it," Zhao Lijai replied without thinking. The moment she uttered those words, she realized she had been caught red-handed. Feeling embarrassed, she said, "Brother Yan, aren't you worried you will catch a cold? Why don't you wear your clothes?" Chapter 293, New Discovery. Seeing his little rabbit throwing the blame, Jin Zuyan walked over and said, It's my fault for not wearing clothes. It's not Aitg's fault for staring." "Brother Yan, you..." Before she could finish her words, she felt something cold slide onto her ring finger. Lowering her gaze, she saw a beautiful ring made of unknown materials with a brilliant gemstone. She stared at the ring for a long time, unable to find any words. When she raised her head, she saw her boyfriend raise his hand to show the man's ring with a similar design on his ring finger. "Aitg, it's a couple ring," Jin Zuyan said with a smile. He held her hand and interlocked their fingers. Looking at the rings on their fingers, he added, "Aitg, you are so outstanding and beautiful. Even if I'm your boyfriend now, I'm worried that you will be snatched away by other men, so can you give me a better title?" It took Zhao Lijai a long time to process his words. She knew how dangerous the apocalypse was and hesitated. Noticing this, Jin Zuyan tightened his hold on her hand and said, "Aitg, I don't know when we will be able to find a safe place and live a stable life, but I hope that when that day comes, we can spend the rest of our lives together." After hearing this, Zhao Lijai went silent for a long time before she said, "Brother Yan, what if I can't live more than 3 years? What if one day I'm eaten by zombies?" The moment he heard this, Jin Zuyan pulled her into his embrace and said firmly, "Aitg, I will never let that day come. I will protect you, even if I have to pay with my life. This time, I will never let you die in front of me." As soon as she heard this, Zhao Lijai hugged him back and buried herself in his warm embrace. After a while, she said, "Brother Yan, I promise to try my best to survive and stay with you until our hair turns grey." When he heard this, Jin Zuyan's eyes lit up and he said, "Thank you, my fiancé." The two of them hugged for a while before parting and heading downstairs to have dinner with the others. After Jin, Zuyan changed into a clean set of clothes. The moment they walked into the dining room, they saw Mo Junji coughing as if he were on the brink of death. "Cough, cough, cough." Seeing this, Zhao Lijai was taken aback and asked, "Sister Jiang, Brother Gao, what's wrong with him?" Hearing this, Jiang Lixin let out a long sigh and said, "I don't know what's wrong with him either. The last time I healed him, his condition had improved and he was no longer coughing. But these past 2 days, he started coughing again. When I checked his body, the black spots had returned and injured his lungs. Is there no way to fully heal him? She asked again. After coughing for a while, Mojunji took a deep breath to calm himself before replying hoarsely, Actually, my condition improved after I drank the water you created with your ability. The moment he said this, everyone turned to look at Zhao Lijai, wondering if her water-type ability was somehow different. Since metal-type ability users could create different types of metals with their power, it wasn't impossible for other elemental users to materialize substances with varying properties too. While everyone else was speculating about this possibility, only Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai guessed that the water which had helped Mojunji was likely from the pond in her space. As for the water she materialized using her ability, they didn't think there was anything unusual about it. After thinking it through, Zhao Lijai became certain that the water he referred to was her pond water. Seeing how badly he was coughing, she finally said, Brother Mo, since you feel better after drinking the water I create, how about I prepare some for you so you can drink it every day? That way, at least it will help ease your coughing fits. The moment Mojunji heard this, he quickly nodded and said, Thank you, sister. After their brief conversation, Zhao Lijai walked to the backyard and took out a water tank from her space. She used her consciousness to gather pond water into several floating spheres before pulling them from her space. Then, using her energy to guide the water, she filled the tank to the brim. Thinking that the water from her pond might have mild healing properties and could improve the body's condition, she took out 4 more water tanks and filled them up as well. When she finished, she checked her pond and was surprised to find that the water surface hadn't decreased as it had before. She had just drawn out a total of 15,000 liters of water, yet the pond's level remained unchanged. Was it because her space had been upgraded? With that question lingering in her mind, she returned to the dining room and said, Everyone, I filled up a total of 5 water tanks. Since my water might have slight healing effects, let's use it as our main drinking water. Yufian nodded and replied, Sister-in-law, I will use your water to cook then. After saying that, he quickly fetched several pots of water from the tank and began boiling it for drinking. While they waited for it to boil, everyone started eating dinner. Since the number of their team members had grown to 30, including the children, they could no longer all sit at the same table. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai took out 2 more dining tables and additional chairs from her space. Fortunately, the house allocated to them was large enough, and the dining room could accommodate 3 tables. Noticing this, Su Chen said, Jin Zuyan, it seems this house is no longer enough for your team. How about I allocate more houses to your team, or you could just choose 1 or 2 villas instead. Chapter 294, Plan for the Future, 1. When Jin Zuyan heard Sun Qi's words, he looked at his team members and asked, What do you all think? Unlike other teams, the Phantom team was used to discussing everything together, and the captain never made decisions on matters that concerned everyone without their input. Seeing this, Sun Qi and Wei Wying, who had always made decisions without consulting their subordinates, were taken aback. It wasn't that they didn't respect their members' opinions or couldn't accept suggestions or criticism, but as captains, they believed they had to maintain basic authority. More than that, they couldn't afford to appear indecisive or weak. Now, watching how casually Jin Zuyan interacted with his team, they finally understood why, no matter how well they treated their subordinates, there had always been a wall between them. It wasn't their team's problem, it was their own. If they couldn't lower their walls and treat their members like friends and family, how could they expect to be treated that way in return? With that realization, both men silently made up their minds to change the way they interacted with their teams. Since Sun Qi was now the leader of the base, it would be impossible for him to treat everyone equally. But at the very least, toward the brothers who had fought alongside him in life and death battles and remained with him from the beginning, he could and should treat them differently. While the 2 captains reflected, the Phantom team members began discussing among themselves. Noticing that Gu Shao's, Rongmo, the children, Mojunji, and Li Kixuan were just watching silently, Jin Zuyan turned to them and asked, the new members, Don't you all have anything to say? Rongmo hesitated for a moment before asking, Captain, can we also voice our opinions? Raising an eyebrow, Jin Zuyan asked, Are you my team members? She nodded and replied, I am. Then what makes you think you would be treated differently from the others? Everyone is treated equally in my team. Of course, except for my Aitg, he added calmly. Everyone was stunned by his words. They had been having a serious discussion, and their captain had just casually stuffed them with a mouthful of dog food without warning. Except for Lee Kixuan, who had been trained by them with 2 hours of non-stop public displays of affection, the rest of the new members wore rather complex expressions. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai pinched her now fiancé's waist and whispered, "Brother Yan, there was no need for that last sentence." Being pinched by his Aitg didn't hurt a bit. Instead, Jin Zuyan's body warmed up, and a certain part of him reacted on instinct. He grabbed her mischievous hand and murmured, "Aitg, be good, don't touch me randomly." Noticing the implication of his words, Zhao Lijai's eyes widened and replied, "Brother Yan, can you be serious? We are in the middle of a discussion." Leaning closer, he said in a low voice, "Aitg, I'm very serious. If you keep touching my waist, we might need to go back to our room first." Sensing the change in his tone, Zhao Lijai quickly withdrew her hand and even shifted her chair away from him, only to be dragged closer to his seat. At that moment, the discussion ended, and Zhang Yuan spoke up, "Captain, we have made up our minds." Jin Zuyan turned back to them and nodded, "Go ahead. Since we still haven't finished cleaning up the zombies in the apartment district, we would prefer to stay in the apartment complex. We don't have to stay together in one unit. Each of us can buy or rent our own apartment from the base. That way we can slowly adjust to life here," Zhang Yuan said. Before Jin Zuyan could reply, Sun Qi chimed in, "That's a great idea. Which apartment building do you want? The one your team cleared before leaving the base has already been cleaned up and ready to be used. Although the units are unfurnished, you can redeem furniture from the base. We have stored intact furniture in the warehouse. Big or small, everything is there." At his words, Jin Zuyan said coolly, "Sun Qi, if you want my team to stay and help build your base, you should at least give us a reason to do so. You want our help yet offer no benefits. Aren't you dreaming a little too big?" Sun Qi laughed and replied, "Of course, your team will get benefits. You can choose any apartment building, and the base will supply the basic furniture. You will also get a 50% discount on the apartment purchase." Since the base was newly established, it needed every ability user available to help with expansion and zombie cleanup. While it was framed as a benefit provided by the base, in truth, the base had nothing to lose. The ones risking their lives clearing out zombies were them. By rights, they should be given housing for free, but the base desperately needed crystal cores to function, so a discount was the best compromise. Hearing his offers, Wei Wang added, "Old Sun, you can't treat the Phantom team and my Eagle team differently." Sun Qi chuckled and replied, "Don't worry, Old Wei, the same benefits apply to your team too." "Good," Wei Wang nodded in satisfaction. Once that matter was settled, Jin Zuyan turned back to his team. "So, how are you going to divide the apartments?" "Captain, it would be wasteful for each of us to have our own unit. We can share with other members," Shen Jinj suggested. "Brother Jinj, what if one day you find a girlfriend and want to live together? Having your brothers around would seriously affect your love life," Zyro Kai teased. Everyone nodded in agreement to his words. Then Shen Jinj said seriously, "Zyro Kai, considering the current situation, the number of women will only continue to decline. Let's not even mention how many female and elderly zombies we saw in the last horde. Just the fact that women weaken during their monthly period makes them more vulnerable." Chapter 295, Plan for the Future, 2. Glancing at the women in the room, Shen Jinj continued, "The scent of blood is deadly in the apocalypse. If they are not protected in a base or survivor camp, how likely are they to survive out there?" He paused for a moment before he added, "Aside from the environmental dangers, they still face cruelty from stronger groups. You have seen how many women have been humiliated and killed. Some might get lucky and be saved by others, but how many more never had that chance and died without even being able to fight back? That's why I don't hold out hope for finding a girlfriend, let alone getting married. If I can just find my family and survive this apocalypse, that's enough." When he finished, the room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone knew he was right, but the truth still strung. Human race, once at the top of the food chain, had fallen to the bottom of the pyramid. In the face of desperation, many had abandoned their humanity and become beasts that killed their own race. After a long pause, Jin Zuyan broke the silence and said, "All right, let's leave marriage discussions for the future. For now, decide your roommates and give the list to Sun Qi." He then glanced at the children before turning to Sun Qi and asked, "Sun Qi, do you have any plans to build a daycare or school for the children? Zunqi nodded and replied, we have planned for it, but we lack earth, metal, and wood-type ability users to rebuild the structures. Right now, with so many survivors arriving, we have to prioritize housing, so we have put the plan on hold. Jin Zuyan nodded and asked, how about finding people to give the children basic combat training? Zunqi thought for a moment, then nodded. That's doable. We have got plenty of soldiers at the base and many are good fighters. Training the kids won't be a problem. Hearing this, Wei Wang added, since we can't protect everyone at all times, it's better to teach them how to protect themselves. My team has several members skilled in close combat, weaponry, and tactics. They haven't awakened abilities yet, so they can't join dangerous missions, but they can help train the children in the base. Besides the children, could you let women and the elderly join too? Zhao Lijai asked. No problem, Zunqi replied with a smile. As long as they are willing to learn, they are welcome to join the training. After they finished discussing the future plan, Zunqi's expression turned solemn as he said, Jin Zuyan, Wei Wang, have the two of you received any news from the capital? Hearing this, the two of them shook their heads, and Wei Wang asked, did you get any news from the capital? Zunqi nodded and replied, yesterday, my subordinates arrived from the capital and brought back the news that the capital had fallen. Most of the leaders were either turned into zombies or killed by them. The situation was too chaotic to find our families, and the chance of them surviving is less than 5%, he added, clenching his fists. The moment he said this, the Phantom team members were shaken. They had always held on to hope that, even if their families weren't protected by the higher-ups, they would at least survive and join the survivor camps. Logically speaking, the government should have had several underground shelters in case of sudden war, as well as countless military bases. They could have used those places to build a safe haven for the people. But unexpectedly, the capital had fallen. Without the leaders giving commands, the soldiers were like loose sand. If politicians or wealthy families took advantage of the chaos to fish in muddy waters, the situation would become even more dangerous for the commoners. As this thought flashed through their minds, they looked at their captain with worried gazes. Jin Zuyan's family situation was different from theirs, but he understood their worries and eagerness to find their loved ones. Even if the chances were low, they wouldn't give up until they found them, dead or alive. After making up his mind, he said, Zunqi, it seems that my team won't be able to complete the task of expanding the base territory. We will head to the capital as soon as possible. As for the reward for the mission, we won't take any. Zunqi had expected this decision and said, since you have completed part of the mission, we will pay you accordingly. You can rest assured and focus on finding your families. My team will stay and continue your mission, Wei Wang added. Hearing this, Jin Zuyan nodded and said, thank you. By the way, we found several solar panels and generators when we went out a few days ago. Do you want them? He asked. As soon as he said this, Zunqi's eyes lit up and he asked, how many solar panels did your team find? We didn't count, but it should be enough to support several important buildings, Zhao Lijai said. That's great, when can we get the solar panels? Zunqi asked. We can give them to you right now, but you will need to send people to collect them. We have to start preparing to leave tomorrow, Jin Zuyan replied. Hearing this, Zunqi nodded and asked, okay, as for the price, is it all right to pay according to the mission reward? We have posted several missions asking people to find solar panels, generators, medical machines, and equipment. We also need specific medicines for surgeries and chronic diseases. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai said, Captain Zun, you are lucky. Before coming here, we cleared out the supplies in the factory district and found the medicine. As for the medical machines and tools, we might only have some of them. This time, Zunqi was stunned by her words and asked, Comrade Zhao, how big is your space? Chapter 296, Thorn in the Heart. Zhao Lijai looked at her fiancé and asked with her eyes. Seeing him nod, she said, it should be equal to 2 or 3 soccer fields. Thinking about the actual size of her space, Jin Zuyan felt his fiancé was being too humble. The size was far greater than that. Just the grassland alone should be more than 30 hectares, while 3 soccer fields are only around 2.13 hectares. While he thought so, everyone else in the room was shocked. The largest known space-type ability user was Feng Yun, and his space was only about 0.18 hectares. As for Xirokai, he had already wilted like a frosted eggplant. Their team had 3 space-type ability users, and his space was the smallest, only 100 square meters. Compared to the other two, his ability seemed like child's play. What he didn't know was that, compared to other space-type ability users, his space already counted as high-grade. After all, space-type abilities were rare, and the size of the space depended on the user's mental power. The stronger the mental power, the larger the space. The reason his space was bigger than most was due to his training as a Special Forces soldier, while Feng Yun's massive space came from a near-death experience. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth, and so was the difference in their mental power. As for Zhao Lijai, she hadn't just experienced death, she had died due to betrayal, waking up with regrets, hatred, and deep unwillingness. If not for her rebirth, she might have become an evil spirit, demanding for lives. Therefore, her mental power far surpassed even Feng Yun's. After a long silence, Wei Wang finally muttered under his breath, "She really is Jin Zuyin's girlfriend. Even her ability is monstrous." Although he spoke softly, ability users had enhanced senses, so everyone heard him clearly. They glanced at the couple and saw Jin Zuyin's darkened face. They assumed he was offended by his girlfriend being called a monster. Unexpectedly, he intertwined his fingers with Zhao Lijai's and raised their hands for all to see. Under the light, the couple's rings on their ring fingers glistened brightly, almost blinding the single dog's eyes. "Aitg is my fiancé now," he said proudly. The moment he said this, Wei Wang and Zun Qi were shocked, while the Phantom team members wore expressions of "as expected." "Comrade Zhao, you are so young, beautiful, and strong. Why did you settle with this old man so fast? Don't you want to explore more? Maybe you will find a better man than him," Wei Wang blurted out without thinking. He was 11 years older than Jin Zuyin, yet he didn't even have a girlfriend, let alone a fiancé. Comparing himself to Jin, Zuyin made him feel bitter. Even though he wasn't as handsome as Zun Qi or Jin Zuyin, he was still above average if one overlooked his tanned skin. He just couldn't understand why no one liked him and preferred the pretty boys. When everyone heard his words, they lit a candle for him in their hearts. As expected, Jin Zuyin's face darkened as he said, "Old Wei, you can leave now. Also, you are not allowed within 10 meters of my Aitg, in case you corrupted her mind." Before Wei Wang could speak, he added, "Xirokai, send the guest off." "Hey, I didn't mean to offend you, I'm just confused," Wei Wang said. Under everyone's gaze, he was escorted out of the house. Standing outside, Xirokai let out a sigh and said, "Captain Wei, you can say whatever you want, but you shouldn't joke about the relationship between my captain and sister-in-law." Pointing to his own temple, he added in a hushed voice, "When it comes to my sister-in-law, my captain's brain works differently. It's a landmine that would explode without warning." Finally understanding the situation, Wei Wang lamented, "I was really just curious. That brat is seriously lucky." Xirokai didn't dare comment and only smiled at his words. After sending him off, he returned to the living room and saw everyone chatting as if nothing had happened. Zun Qi left after staying another 15 minutes. Once he was gone, everyone began checking their equipment and supplies in preparation for tomorrow. The distance from Linen to the capital would take at least 1 or 2 months of travel under current conditions. If anything happened along the way, it might take even longer. When she was done handing over the solar panels and generator to Zun Qi's subordinates, Zhao Lijai found her fiancé and asked, "Brother Yan, should we warn Zun Qi about the incoming rain?" Jin Zuyin nodded and said, "I have already warned him. I also told him to strengthen the defenses, especially the wall." Thinking about the second rain from her previous life, Zhao Lijai asked again, "Brother Yan, should we prepare more supplies for them in case they encounter a zombie horde?" Recalling information from his past life, Jin Zuyin nodded and said, "We can give them more supplies just in case. But since we have already cleared out the zombies in the factory districts and Linen University, the chances of a zombie horde happening in this area are lower. Besides, the zombies on the border are no longer a threat." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "That's a relief. I hope this time we can prevent Linen City from becoming an S-rank zombie city." "Aitg, don't worry. Although I can't promise we won't face the same things as in the previous life, I can promise I will protect you well," Jin Zuyin said, pulling her into his embrace. Feeling safe in his arms, Zhao Lijai smiled and said, "Brother Yan, it's good to have you with me. I don't have to fight alone anymore." When Jin Zuyin heard this, his heart ached for her and he thought inwardly, "If I had been braver in my previous life, would my Aitg have avoided being torn apart by zombies and died a gruesome death?" This thought had always been a thorn in his heart, No matter how hard he tried to move on, he couldn't let go of the guilt he felt. Chapter 297, Concern. After some cuddling, Zhao Lijai brought her fiancé into her space to take a shower and change clothes. The two of them also went to check on Fu Guari's situation. Since they couldn't find him in the house, she used her consciousness to search for him. After a while, she finally saw him lying on the grassland. This time, the small mutated plant didn't attack him. Instead, it swayed beside his right ear as if telling him a story. As for Fu Guari, he had his eyes closed, but a faint smile appeared at the corners of his lips. If not for the slight rise and fall of his chest, she would have thought he was a corpse. After watching him for a while, she said, "Brother Yan, your friend seems different from before. I can't see any signs of the zombie mutation on his body anymore, but he doesn't seem like a normal human either. He doesn't breathe as often as we do." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan thought for a moment before saying, "It might be due to changes in his DNA and body structure. Unless we run some tests, we won't know exactly what happened." Although Zhao Lijai was curious about Fu Guari's situation, she knew they couldn't bring him out of the space just yet. Unless they were sure he was harmless, they wouldn't dare risk it. After a moment of silence, she asked, "Brother Yan, do you think your friend will die without eating? From what I know, zombies lose their power if they don't consume human flesh or crystal cores for a long time." As someone who had once lived as a zombie, Jin Zuyan knew how painful it was to resist the urge to devour human flesh and organs. Even when he had lost his humanity, he still refused to prey on humans, loathing the monster he had become, the kind that had taken his beloved away. He survived by killing zombies and consuming their crystal cores. In the end, he died after he ran out of energy. Thinking of this, he said, he should be able to absorb energy from crystal cores. When she heard this, Zhao Lijai didn't doubt him. In her eyes, her fiancé was omnipotent and seemed to know everything. Nodding, she said, "Brother Yan, we have collected lots of crystal cores. How about giving him some to try?" Jin Zuyan didn't object and replied, "I will listen to you." Once they agreed, Zhao Lijai used her consciousness to move a box of level 1 transparent crystal cores out of the restricted area and placed it beside Fu Guari. The moment the box appeared, the mutated plant grew livelier, trying to absorb the energy. But before it could get much, Fu Guari suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils had turned a caramel brown, no longer resembling a zombie's, though a silver tint lingered on the iris. Sitting up, he opened the box and grabbed a handful of crystal cores. Without hesitation, he shoved them into his mouth and crunched down. The sound of grinding crystals echoed through the field as Zhao Lijai watched, wide-eyed. Jin Zuyan couldn't see what was happening and asked, "Zhai, what's wrong?" It took Zhao Lijai a moment to respond. "Brother Yan, your friend, just ate the crystals like they were candy. Will he get a stomachache from that? I only rinsed them with some water. I don't know if there are still bacteria or parasites." Upon hearing this, Jin Zuyan burst out laughing. Seeing him laugh, Zhao Lijai glared at him and asked, "What's so funny?" Realizing his fiancé was annoyed, he quickly composed himself and replied, "Ahem, Aitg, he's half zombie. Even the zombie virus can't kill him. Do you really think bacteria or parasites can?" Hearing this, Zhao Lijai replied, "Even so, he doesn't seem like a half zombie anymore. He looks so human now." Curious, he asked, "Can you bring me to see him?" "Sure." Holding his hand, Zhao Lijai focused her mind. In the next moment, the two of them disappeared from the house and reappeared not far from Fu Guari. Standing on the grassland, Jin Zuyan was stunned by what he saw. He finally understood why his fiancée had been worried. Fu Guari really didn't seem concerned about overdosing on energy. Instead, he looked ready to explode from how much he had eaten. Zhao Lijai was concerned that he might die from too much energy. So, after seeing Fu Guari grab yet another handful of crystals, she quickly stored the box back into the restricted area. With the crystals suddenly gone, Fu Guari froze midway through eating. He looked around but was unable to find the box. After a moment, he put the remaining crystals into his pocket and lay down again. This time, resting one hand protectively over his pocket, as if worried someone might steal his crystals. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai said, "Brother Yan, I think your friend acts like a little child." Jin Zuyan thought the same but said nothing. He only hoped that one day, Fu Guari would recover and be able to tell them what had happened to him all these years. After making sure Fu Guari was fine in the space, the couple left and reappeared in their bedroom. Since they had to leave early the next morning, they went to bed and fell asleep the moment their heads touched the pillows. Early the next morning, the Phantom team woke up before dawn. While the members prepared breakfast, Jin Zuyin drove the car and took Zhao Lijai to the warehouse area. They had informed Zun Qi yesterday, and he had already arranged the warehouses. When they arrived, a soldier greeted them and said, "Captain Jin, Comrade Zhao, the warehouses have been prepared. This way, please." The two of them nodded and followed the soldier. Unlike the area where supplies were stored, the area prepared for storing medicine was guarded by more soldiers, and the overall security was much tighter. Seeing this, they weren't surprised. After all, medicine was hard to come by. To obtain more, one had to raid hospitals, and the number of zombies in hospitals was several times higher than in other places. This was also the reason why most mercenary groups didn't dare to take on such missions. Chapter 298, Leaving to the Capital. The soldier opened the gate and said, "Captain Jin, Comrade Zhao, I will wait here." Jin Zuyin held his fiancée's hand and walked into the warehouse. The warehouse prepared by the base was no longer an unused building, but a proper storage facility, usually used by the factory. Looking at the clean surroundings, it was clear that the warehouse had been newly built. Although it wasn't as large as the factory's warehouse, it still covered around 5,000 square meters. The two of them walked to the farthest section, and Zhao Lijai began taking out the medicine. Since colds and fevers were common during the apocalypse, she filled half of the warehouse with common medicines and painkillers. The rest of the warehouse was stocked with medications needed for surgeries and chronic diseases. She also brought out hundreds of first aid kits, surgical tools, operating machines, and several diagnostic machines like MRI, CT scans, and X-rays. Taking into account the power required to run those machines, she added extra solar panels and generators. Only after filling the warehouse to the brim did she say, "Brother Yan, let's go to the next warehouse." Okay. Zhao Lijai planned to collect more supplies along the way, and had also made more room in her space's granary. So in addition to some dried food and filling up several massive water tanks with her water, she took out corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, wheat, and rice from her space's granary. While the grains had been processed, they weren't packed, so she simply piled them up in the warehouse, forming several small hills. Half an hour later, the two of them walked out of the warehouse area. Jin Zuyin turned to the soldier and said, "You don't have to see us off." The soldier gave him a salute and replied, "Understood." After they left, the soldier went to check the warehouse. The moment he saw the rooms filled not only with medicine and medical tools, but also food supplies, he was both shocked and delighted. Without wasting time, he quickly informed his comrades to tighten security and went to report to Zun Qi. When Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyin returned to their residence, breakfast was ready. The team ate together. Before they left, Jin Zuyin gathered the team and said, "This time, we are going on a rescue mission, so we won't be bringing everyone." He turned to the children and continued, "You all will stay behind and join the base's training sessions. When we get back, I will personally check your progress. As for Gu Sheos and Rong Mo, the two of you can go find your families. You don't need to follow us. Once you are done, just return to the base." "Understood," they replied in unison. After a moment of silence, Jin Zuyin added, "After much consideration, I have decided to share some secret news with all of you." The moment they heard this, everyone tensed up and focused their attention on him. Jin Zuyin looked at them and said, "I believe all of you noticed that the first rain after the apocalypse caused the zombies to grow stronger, while humans either awakened abilities or turned into zombies." They nodded in agreement. "In 2 months there will be a second rain. This time it might last for more than a month, and we don't know what changes it will bring. The situation might become more dangerous than now, and the number of zombies could increase drastically," Jin Zuyin said solemnly. "Before the second rain comes, I hope everyone can return and help the base strengthen its defenses. We need to reinforce the walls and stock up on supplies," he added. Everyone was shocked when they heard his words. They didn't know where their captain got the information, but they trusted him completely. After Jin Zuyin finished speaking, Zhao Lijai took out a pile of supplies and said, "Danyu, keep these in your space. Only use them when absolutely necessary. We have already informed the base's commander to take good care of you all. Just follow the others to eat at the canteen and try not to attract too much attention. If something happens, go find Zun Qi in the central building." Su Danyu nodded and stored the supplies in his space while saying, "Sister, I understand." The Wen brothers handed the children air guns, metal bullets, and blades for self-defense. Once everything was ready, Zhao Lijai took out their armored vehicles and an SUV from her space. Everyone boarded the cars and drove away while the children stood at the entrance, watching them leave. Looking at the departing vehicles, Lin Jirojio held Zheng Changchao's hand and asked, "Brother, will our brothers and sisters come back?" Zheng Changchao held her hand tightly and replied firmly, "They will. We are a team and they won't abandon us." After a moment, he patted her head and said to the others, "Everyone, since Captain has high expectations for us, we should train hard and not let him down. Let's go. We have to report to the training center before 8 o'clock. "Yes, brother," the children replied in unison. After locking the doors, they walked to the training center together. 40 minutes later, they stood in the open field together with countless women, children, and several men. There were no elderly, as none of them thought that they would learn anything at their current age. It's better to find an odd job and earn food. Standing in front of them were several soldiers with burly physiques and stern expressions. When Zun Qi arrived, everyone had been waiting for a while. Seeing that the number of participants in this training was more than what he expected, a smile appeared on his face. When the women saw this, they blushed and lowered their heads bashfully. No matter in what era or in what situation, people like to appreciate beautiful things, including handsome men. Not noticing the women's glances, he stood at the podium and said, "Everyone, I'm Zun Qi, the base commander." Chapter 299, Parting. Zun Qi stood with his hands on his back and gazed at the crowd below as he said, "Welcome to the training camp. This training camp is open to everyone, but there will be a test once every 3 months to check everyone's progress. Those who perform well will have the chance to join the guards team and work for the base after 1 year of training. As everyone knows, the guards will receive a monthly salary and supplies from the base. They will also receive other benefits such as a discount when renting a residence or buying medicines." The moment he said this, everyone's eyes lit up. They had heard the rumors about the guards' benefits, but no one believed them as it's unofficial. Now, with the base commander confirming this rumor, everyone was eager to learn and perform well. If they were hired as guards, they wouldn't have to worry about having no food or place to stay anymore. They might even be able to save some money and get married. With the new hope as a goal, their fighting spirits soared. Seeing this, Zun Qi smiled and continued, "I hope everyone strives to get better and become stronger. As long as we work together and unite, we will be able to build a safe haven for our family and future generations." As soon as he finished his words, cheers erupted and everyone clapped with vigor. The young members of the Phantom team were also affected by the atmosphere, as each of them promised to get stronger and protect the people they care for. After getting the effect he desired, Zun Qi didn't linger and left the training camp under everyone's cheers. He still had tons of work to do and quickly went to the warehouse area to arrange the medicine and new supplies. While Zun Qi was working tirelessly like a bee in the base, the Phantom team finally reached the crossroads where they would go in the opposite direction from Gu Sheo's and Rongmo. Parking their cars on the roadside, Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan came out of their car and walked towards Gu Sheo's SUV. Seeing their captain coming over, the two of them came out of the car. Before they could ask, Jin Zuyan handed them 2 satellite phones and said, "These phones already have all the members' phone numbers. Keep contact through this phone. Report once every 5 days." Gu Sheo's accepted the phone and replied, "Thank you, Captain. We will definitely come back as soon as possible." Patting his shoulder, Jin Zuyan said, "If you and your girlfriend cannot make it back on time, find a safe place. Don't get caught in the rain, and also be careful of animal and plant mutations. Avoid areas full of animals or plants. It's better to find a place with a high wall and strong defense. We will come to pick you both up after the second rain if you can't come back on time." Understood, Gu Sheo's nodded. With the assurance from his captain, he was more confident when doing things. While the two of them were talking, Zhao Lijai was filling up the SUV with supplies. Since Gu Sheo's was a water-type ability user, she didn't give them water and only prepared dried food and convenient food such as compressed biscuits, self-heating food, and instant noodles. Besides that, she also prepared some first aid kit items, medicines, and women's products for Rongmo. When she was done, she added several gallons of gasoline, 2 handguns, 2 boxes of bullets, and several hand grenades for them in case of emergency. "Sister Zhao, will this be too much?" Rongmo asked. Zhao Lijai smiled and shook her head while saying, "Not much. Our team has more supplies than this. It's just that the space in your car is limited, so I can't give you more." After she finished speaking, she took out a backpack from her space and added, "There are a total of 5,000 crystal cores inside and several bottles made using my ability. Use them during an emergency." This time, Rongmore didn't refuse and accepted the crystal cores and water. During their battle against the zombie horde, all the crystals were taken by the team, and they were given a monthly allowance. While she didn't say anything, she felt uncomfortable in her heart. But now, she realized that Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan were not greedy. They didn't divide everything on the spot to avoid making it inconvenient for them. Holding the backpack, she said, "Thank you, Sister Zhao. Keep in contact, and I hope you find your family as soon as possible," Zhao Lijai said with a smile. After the brief conversation, they boarded their cars and drove in the opposite direction. As the Phantom team went toward the border direction, Gu Shao's drove to the city center. Their destination was Yunchen City, which is located in the southeast of Linen City, while the Phantom team's destination was the capital, which is located in the northwest of Linen City. As they drove, Rongmore told her boyfriend what supplies and how many crystal cores were given by Zhao Lijai. After hearing her words, he said, "More, I think we should continue staying with the team. During the zombie horde, both of us already witnessed their strength. Although there are dangers as we go on missions with them, with their abilities and loyalty, no matter how bad our situation becomes during battle, they will make sure we stay alive." Nodding at his words, Rongmore replied, "I also have the same thought as you." While Jin Zuyan was testing them, they were also testing the Phantom team. If they had found that the team was unreliable, they would have taken the children and left. Fortunately, they were not wrong in judging the team. At the same time, Zhao Lijai glanced at her fiancé and asked, "Brother Yan, have you ever thought of finding your family?" Jin Zuyan was taken aback by her sudden question and asked her back, "Aitg, why did you suddenly ask about this matter?" Chapter 300, Jin Zuyan's Plan. Zhao Lijai went silent for a moment and said, "Brother Yan, you said that we grew up together in an orphanage, but then you left. If you left back then, wouldn't that mean you had been adopted?" Jin Zuyan was lost in his thoughts for a moment before he replied, "I was sent away not long after." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai was surprised and asked, "If you were sent away by your adoptive parents, then shouldn't you have returned to the orphanage?" After she asked this, Jin Zuyan went into a long silence before he said, "The one who picked me up is my biological father. With my father alive, there was no reason for the orphanage to accept me back." This time, Zhao Lijai was stunned by his words. She looked at his calm expression and couldn't find any ripples in his eyes. It was as if the one experiencing that was another person and not himself. For an unknown reason, she felt heartache for him. She was so angry and devastated when she was betrayed by Mo Bingxiu in her previous life. If a friend could cause such damage to her, what about him? He was given hope by his father and then betrayed not long after. If they never saw the light, they wouldn't yearn for it. But after seeing the light, how could they bear to go back to the darkness? Without her noticing, her eyes reddened and tears slipped out from the corners of her eyes. Noticing this, Jin Zuyan was shocked and he quickly held her hand while asking with worry, "Aitg, what's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Shaking her head, Zhao Lijai held her fiancé's hand back and said hoarsely, "Brother Yan, we won't find them. I will be your family, so don't be sad anymore." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan felt warm in his heart. He had long since awakened from his dream of a complete family and his yearning for his father's affections. After dying once and learning the truth, he no longer thought of that person as his father. Now, he was only a man who needed to be killed to protect his Aitg. But it was rare for his Aitg to feel sorry for him, so he had to use this chance well and deepen their relationship. While his mind was spinning at a fast speed, it was only a moment before he said, "Aitg, if you feel sorry for me, how about giving me a child?" The moment he said this, Zhao Lijai was so stunned that she even stopped crying. She looked at him with eyes full of shock and asked, "Brother Yan, what did you say?" Seeing her reaction, Jin Zuyan turned his gaze to the road and replied softly, "Aitg, you said you will become my family, but I always wanted a complete family. It's enough to have you, but I also want a mini version of you. If we can have a daughter, that would be even better. Don't you think so?" At first, Zhao Lijai thought that he was being too hasty. Having a child in the apocalypse was not easy. What's more, they didn't even have a safe place yet. He wouldn't expect her to fight zombies and continue traveling with a big belly, would he? But after hearing his words, she felt that his request made sense. Both of them were orphans and never had a complete family. Just imagining a son who looked like him and a daughter who looked like her, she felt happy. She thought about this matter for a long time before she said, "Brother Yan, it's not impossible for us to have children together. But before that, we have to find a safe place first, at least until the situation after the second reign stabilizes. Otherwise, it will be too dangerous for me and the baby." This time, it was Jin Zuyan's turn to be stunned. He only wanted to tease her and never had any intention of having a child for now. He had just gotten together with her, so he still wanted to spend more time with her alone. If a child were present, he would have to share his Aitg's attention with that child, and that wasn't what he wanted. But that didn't mean he didn't want children. He wanted to have a bunch of little monkeys with his Aitg, but of course, the number of children they would have depended on how many she wanted. Even if she only wanted one, that would be enough for him. After considering everything, he nodded and said, "I will listen to you. We can wait a few years before having a child, but we can practice beforehand. I saw lots of small umbrellas in your space. That should be enough for us to use for a long time." As soon as he said this, Zhao Lijai blushed and let go of his hand. Thanks to his words, she no longer cried and quickly avoided his gaze. She looked at the road and stammered, "That would depend on your performance." Her words were enough for him. For the rest of the journey, Jin Zuyan was in a great mood. He drove and hummed out-of-tune melodies. Zhao Lijai smiled when she saw him like this. Leaning on her seat, she closed her eyes and checked her space using her consciousness. Fu Guari was still inside, and she needed to feed him some crystal cores. With the addition of someone to feed, they should work harder to kill zombies and obtain more crystals. Otherwise, it would be bad if he died due to low energy. With this thought, she gave him a handful of crystal cores and 2 pieces of steamed buns. She wanted to see if he was able to eat human food now. The moment Fu Guari saw the crystal cores appear in front of him, his eyes lit up, and he picked them up from the grassland. Since he had another handful of crystals, he was no longer frugal and ate several crystals at once. Chapter 301, Suspicious Group, 1. After he was done, Fu Guari finally noticed a plate with 2 steamed buns. He had seen those people in the facility eating this thing before. While he didn't feel the smell was as appealing as the crystal cores, he no longer found it disgusting. Feeling curious, he picked up a steamed bun and observed it closely. He pinched it lightly and felt that it was soft. He then sniffed it several times and frowned. He noticed a faint fragrance coming from this thing, but it was not enough to make him want to eat it. As he pinched the steamed bun, it suddenly burst and the meat filling fell on his palm. The moment the filling was exposed, his eyes finally flickered with delight. He picked up the bun, ate the meat filling, but threw away the skin. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai took a roasted duck from the warehouse area and gave it to him. When Fu Guari saw this, he reached out and grabbed the roasted duck. Unlike the steamed buns, he didn't hesitate and devoured the food. He ate everything, leaving not even a bone behind. After testing several types of food, Zhao Lijai finally came to a conclusion. Besides crystal cores, Fu Guari was able to consume cooked meat. With this, it would be easier for them to hide his identity if he came out of her space one day. No one would eat crystal cores directly, but lots of people preferred eating meat rather than vegetables or staple food. After driving for several hours, they finally arrived at the border area. Now that the survivors were no longer living in the survivor camp located at the border, the area was deserted, with only a few wandering zombies in sight. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai finally felt more at ease. In her previous life, the border area of Linen City had been one of the most dangerous zones at the beginning of the apocalypse. Due to the large number of survivors gathering in that place, zombies were attracted, and several small-sized hordes frequently attacked the camp. Without any solid walls as the first line of defense, every attack resulted in heavy casualties. With no reinforcements from the capital or other camps, there were no survivors left before the second reign. As the number of infected people increased, so did the number of zombies drastically. When the second reign arrived, the second wave of mutations began. Without proper preparation, most people who were already weak and malnourished couldn't survive the mutation process and ended up turning into zombies. For all these reasons, Linen City became the first S-rank zombie city after the apocalypse. As for the capital, she had no idea what happened there at the beginning of the outbreak. But when she joined Boss Lin's team and followed them to Jiangning City, the capital was already under government control and the situation had stabilized. Thinking about the events of her previous life, Zhao Lijai couldn't help but glance at her fiancé. Because of the decisions they made in this life, what had happened in the past no longer repeated. While she was delighted with this outcome, it also made her anxious about the unknown. Without knowledge of the future, would she still be able to survive, or would her interference only make things worse? The more she thought about it, the more unsettled she felt. As they drove past the border, Jin Zuyin picked up the walkie-talkie and asked, "Old Chin, how are the surroundings?" Not long after, Chin Luzi's voice crackled through the device. "Captain, aside from some scattered zombies, there is no sign of large groups within a 500-meter radius. Keep an eye on the area and report anything suspicious immediately," Jin Zuyin instructed. Understood. Thanks to the recent cleaning operations around the border, they encountered a few zombies. The roads had also been repaired during their last return from a mission. The Eagle team and Zun Chi's soldiers had cleared away abandoned vehicles and debris, allowing them to travel faster than expected. When the sun reached its peak, Jin Zuyin informed his team, "Let's find a place to rest and eat lunch first." In the front car, Chin Luzi quickly checked the map in his mind and responded through the walkie-talkie, "Captain, there is a small compound up ahead. No zombies inside, but there are 12 ability users and over 100 ordinary people." Jin Zuyin thought for a moment before replying, "Let's check it out first." Understood. Following his order, the team drove toward the compound. In less than 15 minutes, they saw a metal gate wrapped in barbed wire. 2 people stood guard behind it, each holding a rifle. Seeing the weapons, Jin Zuyin warned, "Be cautious, they might not be friendly." Soon after, they parked their armored vehicles outside the gate. The guards exchanged surprised glances. Just from the vehicles, they could tell this group came from the military. One of the guards quickly ran off to inform their leader, while the other remained at the gate, keeping watch. From their cautious behavior, the Phantom team quickly deduced that these people feared them, or more accurately, feared the military. They could be escaped convicts or local gangsters. Considering the number of people inside, the Phantom members got out of their cars and walked toward the gate. The remaining guard, seeing their approach, became even more certain that this was a group he couldn't afford to offend. He quickly plastered a smile on his face and greeted them, "Brothers, may I ask who you are looking for?" In the current world, hearing such a greeting was odd. Normally, people were suspicious and guarded when encountering strangers. Because of that strange behavior, Zhao Lijai was sure this group was hiding something. Before anyone else could respond, she stepped forward and said, "Brother, we have been driving for a long time. We just want to find a place to rest. We will leave after lunch." Hearing this, the guard let out a silent sigh of relief. He had assumed they were here for trouble. If they only wanted a short break, there was nothing to worry about. Chapter 302, Suspicious Group, 2. Not long after, the other guard returned with a group. Walking in front was a man in his 40s. His facial features were hard to make out due to his beard and long hair. If not for the respect shown to him by the others, Zhao Lijai would have thought he was a beggar, given how unkempt he looked. The moment the guard saw him coming, he quickly said, "Boss, you are here." The bearded man glanced at the Phantom team before asking, "Who are you all? What do you want coming here?" Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded to herself and thought, this is the normal reaction. "Brother, we came from Linen City and are only looking for a place to take a short break. After lunch, we will be on our way and won't disturb you or your people," Zhao Lijai said with a smile. If it were someone else, they might have lowered their guard upon seeing a young, beautiful girl, but the bearded man narrowed his eyes and observed them coldly instead. He noticed their armored vehicles and clean clothes. For people to stay this clean and well-equipped in the apocalypse, they had to be strong. Although he had nothing to hide, he worried this group might have bad intentions. It hadn't been easy for him and his brothers to find this place and rebuild the walls. If it were just them, he wouldn't have minded letting this group rest for an hour or two, but there were many women, children, and elderly here. With so many men in this group, what if they took a liking to the women and did something unspeakable? As village chief, he had a responsibility to protect everyone. It had been hard enough for them to escape their original village and reach this place. He wouldn't take the risk. After considering everything, he said, "Comrade, we don't have any space for you. You should leave." Jin Zuyin, however, noticed that despite the man's rough appearance, his eyes were clear. That was the eyes of someone righteous and honest. He had met many people and could judge character better than others. "Comrade, we won't stay long and we are willing to pay," he said. Hearing this, the man replied, "We don't need your money." Noticing he didn't outright refuse payment, only specified no money, Zhao Lijai took out 2 sacks of rice. each weighing 25 kilograms from her space. The moment the man and his group saw the rice, their eyes lit up. "We will pay with this," Aitg said. This time the man hesitated for a moment before saying, "All right, open the gate." The guards quickly removed the barricades and opened the gate at his word. Once the gate was opened, Aitg stored their armored vehicles back into her space, and the team proceeded into the compound on foot. Seeing her store the vehicles, the guards were astonished. They also had a space-type ability user, but her ability was limited as her space was only 10 square meters. Once their boss led the Phantom team away, 2 of the guards carried the rice sacks in another direction. After they left, the guards at the gate shut it again and put the barricades back in place. As they walked, the Phantom team members took in their surroundings. Although called a compound, the place was actually a villa with several buildings. The area that used to be a garden was now barren with just cracked soil and dried weeds left behind. They were led to a small building near the garden. It had likely been used as a warehouse by the previous owner, but now served as the leader and his men's resting place. Opening the door, the leader said, "You can rest here. After 2 hours, you will have to leave." Chin Luzi stood at the entrance, surveyed the surroundings briefly, then nodded. With his confirmation, the Phantom team entered and shut the door. Outside the building, one of the men asked, "Boss, is it really okay to let them stay?" "We don't have another choice. Our supplies will only last another day. If we didn't accept the rice, we wouldn't make it until our brothers return," the boss replied. After the brief conversation, they returned to the main building. Inside the warehouse, Chin Luzi said, "Captain, they have left." Since it was inconvenient to cook, Aitg took out steamed buns and chicken soup they had prepared that morning from her space. Everyone ate several steamed buns and drank 2 bowls of soup until they were about 70% full. After eating, they took turns keeping watch. Those who had to drive later took longer naps, while the others kept guard. While they rested, a meeting was being held in the main building. Everyone had been gathered, and the leader said, "It's been more than 5 days since our people went out for supplies. Just now, we let a group in and they paid us with 50 kilograms of rice. That should be enough to get us through a few more days. But we can't just sit here and do nothing. I plan to take some of our brothers and go out to find the first team. If we don't return in 5 days, you all should leave this place and head toward the city." In the past few days, we all heard the sounds of explosions in the distance. Now that the noises have stopped, it likely means the zombies have been cleared. If you go together, you should be able to deal with any lone zombie you encounter. When he finished, the crowd murmured softly until someone said, "Chief, what if the border is still crowded with zombies? Wouldn't that be suicide if we go there?" Those people who just arrived came from Linen City. If they made it through the border, then it's no longer dangerous. Now that we are sure that it's safe, we can't waste time, the leader answered. "Chief, we are just weak people. How can we survive without you and the others?" an old man asked. Chapter 303, Suspicious Group, 3. The leader went silent for a moment after hearing the old man's words, then said, "In that case, I will leave several of our brothers here to protect you. I will go with De Huang and Zyro Huang to look for the first team." The guards were stunned by his words, and one of the guards said, "Boss, it's too dangerous with just the 3 of you. Let me go too." The leader shook his head and replied, "Besides me, you are the strongest among us. I will be more at ease knowing you are here with them." "But I..." Before he could finish, the leader added, "I know you are loyal and worried about me and our brothers, but you have responsibilities too. You can't abandon your wife and child to go on a risky mission." The man looked at his family and met with his wife's pleading gaze. After a while, he lowered his head and said nothing. Sensing their low mood, the leader said, "All right, let's not waste time. Have lunch first. Once that's done, pack your things and prepare to leave." "Understood," the guards and villagers replied before dispersing. The women went to prepare lunch, while the men and children began packing their belongings. Everyone worked in silence as no one knew what would happen to them after they left this place. 2 hours later, the Phantom team had already packed up and walked out of the warehouse building. The moment they came out, they saw a large group of people outside. Seeing them, the leader walked over and said, "Comrade, may I ask something?" "Speak," Jin Zuyan said. "You said that your team is from Linen City. How is the situation at the border?" the leader asked. Hearing his question, Jin Zuyan replied, "If you are asking about the zombies, the horde has been killed. The border is relatively safe for now." When everyone heard this, hope ignited in their dull eyes. As they talked in hushed tones, the leader asked again, "Then, what is the situation in Linen City?" After hearing his question, the Phantom team knew these people might be planning to go to Linen City. This time it was Zhang Yuan who replied, "Comrade, if you and your people plan to go to Linen City, I suggest you head to the base near Linen University. Avoid the city center. As of now, the only safe area we know of is the base located in the Mount Peak Garden residential area. It will take around 6 to 7 hours of driving to get there from the border." The moment he said this, the survivors began to worry about another issue. While they could reach the base in a day from their current location, they would need a lot of cars or buses. Even though the Phantom team noticed this problem, they didn't offer any help. After all, it was impossible for them to help everyone, and they had their own problems to solve. The leader knew this too, so after asking a few more questions, he nodded and said, "Thank you for sharing the information, comrade." Zhang Yuan nodded and left with his team as several curious villagers followed them. When they saw Zhao Lijai wave her hand and several armored cars appeared out of nowhere, they gasped in surprise. Before she could climb into the passenger seat, Zhao Lijai felt a tug on the hem of her pants. Lowering her head, she saw a little boy staring at her. She stared back at him and asked, "What do you want?" The little boy flinched with fear when he met her gaze. The eyes of the sister in front of him changed color for a moment. Her eyes looked similar to the foreigner's, yet it was also as clear as the sea and sky. Thinking about his sister and brother, he tightened his grip and said, "Sister, do you have any medicine for fever? My sister and brother have been sick for several days and their fever won't go down." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai glanced at the people watching them and asked the boy, "Why should I help you?" When the boy heard this, he loosened his hold on her pants and said, I don't know." Seeing that the boy wouldn't get anything from her, the villagers realized it was impossible to guilt-trip this girl. Since that was the case, they lost interest and left without looking back. After they left, Zhao Lijai turned her head and asked, "Brother Qin, is there anyone hiding?" Qin Luzi checked his map and said, "None." Nodding at his words, Zhao Lijai took out a backpack from her space and put in some dry food, medicine, and several bottles of her pond water. Guessing that the boy's siblings were in the process of awakening their abilities, she also added some crystal cores in one of the backpack's compartments. After she was done, she handed the backpack to the boy and said, "Take this back and feed your sister and brother the medicine. Remember to give them more water. They will wake up once the fever subsides." The boy hugged the backpack and knelt down. He kowtowed and said, "Thank you, sister. I will definitely repay your kindness one day." Zhao Lijai was uncomfortable receiving such a big kowtow and pulled the boy up. She brushed away the sand on his forehead and said, "Hide the backpack well and don't let others snatch it." After saying this, she patted the boy's head and got into the car. Not long after, they finally left the compound. The boy stood there until their cars could no longer be seen before hurrying back. When the guards saw him holding the backpack, one of them said, "Be careful of those people in the side building. You should go back quickly." The boy nodded and replied, "Thank you for the reminder, brother." Along the way, the boy didn't dare to slow down, afraid that someone might target him for his supplies. While he was worried, in reality, no one paid him any attention. Hello.